The silver-hulled Haelor scout ship hung silently in Earth's orbit, its sensors probing the blue planet below. Commander Haelor stood on the observation deck, his scaled fingers tapping against the transparent barrier. Earth was nothing special to him, just another primitive world to catalog and study. Fascinating. They still use combustion engines, he muttered, watching the trails of aircraft crisscrossing the skies. The Haelor Empire had moved beyond such basic technology thousands of years ago. Their ships moved through space using quantum drives, their cities powered by dark matter reactors. The science team had picked New Seoul for their first specimen collection. The sprawling metropolis offered plenty of cover for their cloaked shuttles, and the dense population meant no one would notice one missing child. Jisoo was playing in her family's rooftop garden when it happened. The 8-year-old girl loved tending to the vegetables with her mother, watching the plants grow day by day. That evening, she was alone, watering the tomatoes as the sun set behind the city's towering skyscrapers. The Haelor capture team materialized silently behind her. Before Jisoo could scream, a field of energy wrapped around her small body, freezing her in place. She could only watch with terrified eyes as the tall, scaled creatures approached. Their armor gleamed in the dying light, and their yellow eyes studied her with cold curiosity. Subjects secured, one of them reported in their clicking language. Preparing for transport. In the apartment below, Jisoo's mother called out that dinner was ready. Her voice carried up to the empty garden, where only a knocked-over watering can show that anything was amiss. Aboard the scout ship, Commander Haelor examined the captured human child through the containment field. Jisoo huddled in the corner of her cell, tears streaming down her face. To Haelor, her crying was merely an interesting biological response to stress. Begin the testing sequence, he ordered the medical team. I want to understand their pain thresholds, healing capabilities, and cognitive functions. The lead scientist, Dr. Nexer, prepared her instruments. Sir, the subject appears to be displaying signs of sentient distress. Perhaps we should. They're animals, Doctor. Haelor cut her off sharply. Barely more advanced than the primates they evolved from. Their emotions are merely instinctive responses, nothing more. Jisoo watched them with wide eyes, understanding none of their words, but feeling the menace in their tones. When the first probe approached her, crackling with energy, her scream echoed through the ship's corridors. On Earth, Jisoo's disappearance triggered a massive search. Police scoured the city while her parents made desperate pleas on television. No one connected the missing girl to the strange lights some had reported in the sky that evening. As days turned to weeks, the Haelor continued their experiments. They were puzzled by Jisoo's resilience. Despite the torture they inflicted, she maintained her spirit. She sang Korean lullabies to herself in her cell and drew pictures in the condensation on the walls. What the Haelor didn't understand was that they weren't just studying a test subject. They were creating humanity's first contact with alien life. And in their arrogance, they had made a terrible mistake. They had hurt a human child, and humanity would not forgive this transgression. Commander Haelor recorded his final observations before they departed Earth's orbit. Species shows remarkable physical durability, but remains primitive and unsuitable for inclusion in the Empire. Recommend minimal monitoring of this sector. As the scout ship vanished into hyperspace with Jisoo aboard, he had no way of knowing that this single act of cruelty would lead to the Empire's greatest mistake. Humanity was about to show the galaxy that technological advancement wasn't everything, and that underestimating humans was a fatal error. On Earth, in a high-tech facility deep beneath Seoul, the first unusual signals were being detected. Humanity's first step toward the stars was about to begin, driven by a desperate search for one little girl who watered her mother's tomatoes. Title: The Breaking Point. Earth Unites. The video footage arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. In a secret listening post in Antarctica, technician Du Young stared at his screen in horror. The intercepted Haelor transmission showed Jisoo strapped to a metal table, her small body convulsing under their tests. Her screams needed no translation. Within hours, the video reached every major government. In Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi, leaders watched in stunned silence. This wasn't just an alien abduction, it was the systematic torture of a child. Suho received the call at his mountain home outside Seoul. The retired military strategist had spent years planning Earth's defenses against possible alien threats, but none of his scenarios had prepared him for this. As his secure phone rang, he was already packing his bags. "They're requesting your presence at the emergency UN session," his former aide told him. "Every nation is sending their top military minds." The United Nations building in New York had never seen such unity. Countries that had been enemies for generations sat side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of this new threat. Suho stood before them, his weathered face grim. "The Haelor Empire believes us weak," he began, his voice firm. "They took our child because they thought we couldn't stop them. They were wrong." Under the Pacific Ocean, massive bunkers that had been abandoned since the Cold War sprang to life. Engineers worked around the clock, retrofitting old missile silos and command centers. The world's best scientists gathered in these underwater facilities, pooling their knowledge. China shared its quantum computing breakthroughs. Russia opened its advanced weapons research. The United States revealed its secret space fleet program. For the first time in human history, there were no secrets between nations. In New Seoul, Jisoo's parents met with Suho. Her mother clutched her daughter's favorite stuffed rabbit as they watched the footage. "Make them pay," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Suho bowed deeply, making the silent promise. The Earth Defense Force took shape with unprecedented speed. Former enemies became training partners. Israeli pilots taught alongside Iranian experts. Indian and Pakistani special forces trained together for space combat. Korean and Japanese scientists collaborated on weapon designs. Suho established his command center deep beneath the Pacific. On massive screens, he watched as humanity's first true space fleet came together. Shipyards that had once built aircraft carriers now constructed warships designed for the stars. "We're not ready," one of his advisors warned. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Suho smiled grimly. "They have better weapons," he agreed. "But we have something they don't understand. Rage. They hurt our child. There isn't a soldier, pilot, or engineer on this planet who won't fight to the death to make that right." Every day, more transmissions from the Haelor ship were intercepted. Every scream from Jisoo strengthened humanity's resolve. In laboratories around the world, scientists worked to crack the aliens' technology. In training centers, soldiers prepared for a war unlike any in human history. The Haelor Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had judged humanity by its technology, not its spirit. They thought taking a child would go unnoticed, unpunished. Instead, they had given Earth something it had never had before, a common enemy. As Suho watched his unified forces prepare for war, he thought of Jisoo's rabbit, still sitting in her empty room. Soon, very soon, they would bring her home. And the Haelor Empire would learn why you should never, ever hurt a human child. The breaking point had been reached. Humanity was going to war. Title: Human Ingenuity. Breaking Alien Technology. In a hidden laboratory beneath Mount Hala, Hujin stared at the twisted wreck of the Haelor scout ship. The small craft had crashed during a storm, its crew dead on impact. This was humanity's first real look at alien technology, and Hujin knew they couldn't waste this chance. "The power core is unlike anything we've seen," he told his team, running his hands over the strange metal. "But look here. They still follow basic physics. Energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed." For weeks, they worked around the clock. Hejin slept on a cot in his lab, his dreams filled with alien equations. The Haelor technology was advanced, but not magical. Every system had a purpose, every circuit followed rules. Slowly, the secrets began to reveal themselves. In another section of the facility, Mireille focused on a different challenge. The young physicist had been studying the neural patterns in Jisu's intercepted medical scans. The Haelor's torture had accidentally given Earth valuable data about how human brains responded to their technology. Their shields are tuned to their own biology, Mayray explained during a breakthrough meeting. They never considered that human neural patterns would be different. We can use that. She demonstrated her new weapon on a captured piece of Haelor armor. The shield flickered and died as her device emitted a pattern based on human brainwaves. The assembled scientists broke into applause. It was their first real advantage. Meanwhile, aboard the Haelor ship, Jisu's resistance was teaching them other lessons. The child's ability to maintain consciousness during their tests frustrated the aliens. They didn't understand that human pain tolerance wasn't just physical, it was tied to will and emotion. Hajin's team made another critical discovery in the crashed ship's database. The Haelor are deeply hierarchical, he reported. Their ships, their weapons, everything is controlled from the top down. They have no concept of individual initiative. This explained why the ship's systems were so interconnected. Take out the command center, and everything below it would fail. It was efficient but vulnerable, especially to humans, who excelled at improvising and acting independently. Mayray's weapons development accelerated. She combined Hajin's insights with her neural technology, creating devices that could disrupt entire Haelor command structures. In simulations, their ships fell into chaos when their rigid control systems encountered human pattern interference. They think in straight lines, Mayray told the military commanders. We think in waves and patterns. Their technology reflects their psychology, and that's their weakness. The breakthrough came when Hajin successfully powered up the crashed ship's drive system. The quantum mechanics behind it were complex, but the principle was simple enough. The Haelor had found only one way to bend space. Humans were already thinking of three more. As Earth's first warships took shape, they incorporated these insights. Their designs were unpredictable, their systems deliberately chaotic to Haelor sensors. Each ship could function independently, and each weapon carried Mayray's neural disruptors. The Haelor Empire had given humanity their technology on a silver platter, believing Earth too primitive to understand it. Instead, humans had taken it apart, improved it, and turned it against them. In his lab, Hajin watched the first test flight of a human-modified quantum drive. Above him, Mayray's neural cannons hummed with power. Soon, very soon, they would show the Haelor Empire what human ingenuity could really do. And somewhere in space, Jisu's continued resistance was proving what they already knew. Never underestimate the human spirit, even in its smallest forms. Title: The Strike, Humanity's First Attack. Admiral Ta-1 stood on the bridge of the EF's Vengeance, Earth's first quantum-powered warship. The fleet of 50 ships hung in the darkness beyond Mars, waiting for his command. Each vessel carried weapons that would make the Haelor Empire regret their cruelty. All ships report ready, his communications officer announced. Strike teams are in position. Tai-1 thought of Jisu's parents, still waiting at home. Begin Operation Payback, he ordered. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace, emerging deep in Haelor territory. Their arrival triggered chaos in the Empire's defense network, the ship's neural pattern shields making them appear as ghosts to alien sensors. On the Haelor command station, alarms blared. Impossible, the station commander hissed. These primitives can't have quantum drive technology. The first neural disruptor blasts hit the station. Haelor crews collapsed as human brainwave patterns overwhelmed their neural networks. Their rigid command structure crumbled as officers fell unconscious at their posts. Meanwhile, Commander Yunhee led her Special Forces team through the Haelor research vessel where Jisu was held. Their armor, reverse-engineered from the crashed scout ship, let them move unseen through the corridors. Target located, Yunhee whispered. Beginning extraction. They found Jisu in the laboratory, strapped to an examination table. Despite 247 days of torture, her eyes still held defiance. When she saw human soldiers, she smiled for the first time in months. "We're going home," Yun-hee told her in Korean, cutting her free. "Your parents are waiting." Outside, Admiral Ta-Won's fleet engaged the Haelor defenders. The aliens fought with textbook precision, following battle plans unchanged for centuries. But humans brought chaos to space combat, their ships moving in patterns no Haelor computer could predict. Mayre's neural weapons proved devastating. Haelor ships lost power as their command centers failed, their crews unable to handle the assault on their organized minds. The Empire's mighty warships drifted helpless in space. Extraction team reports success. Ta-Won's comm officer announced. They have the package. Yun-hee's team fought their way back to their shuttle. Ji-soo held safely between them. The child hadn't forgotten her Korean, but she'd learned something valuable, the Haelor language. She whispered their secrets as they ran. The human fleet regrouped around their rescue craft. The Haelor command station burned behind them, its rigid hierarchy shattered by human ingenuity. Admiral Ta-Won gave the order to return home. As they jumped to Earth, Ji-soo slept in the medical bay, clutching a soldier's offered jacket. She was going home, and she had survived. The Haelor Empire had just learned their first lesson about humanity: never take what we love. Back on their burning station, the Haelor commander sent an urgent message to the Empire. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are coming for us all. The first strike was over. The war had truly begun. High Commander Zultur of the Haelor Empire stared at the battle reports in disbelief. 3 major systems lost in a month. Centuries of military doctrine proven useless against human tactics. Captain Duha's fleet moved like water, flowing around their defenses in ways their computers couldn't predict. They're using our own trade routes against us, an analyst reported, jumping between systems faster than we can track. Every time we adapt, they change tactics. Duha's latest victory showed why humans were so dangerous. Instead of attacking the Haelor defense platforms directly, his ships had scattered into small groups. While the main fleet engaged the defenders, these teams slipped through gaps in the Empire's sensor network. Impossible. Zultur had roared when he learned how Duha had disabled an entire planetary defense grid. The human had simply dropped thousands of small drones into the planet's atmosphere. Each carried Mayre's neural disruptors, overwhelming the Haelor control systems from within. General Jin Woo's conquest of the Proxima colonies demonstrated another human advantage. They could fight without orders. When Jin Woo's flagship was destroyed, his captains continued the attack without hesitation. No Haelor commander would dare act without direct authorization. "They're everywhere and nowhere," a Haelor admiral complained. "We prepare for large fleet actions. They send infiltrators. We fortify our bases. They attack our supply lines. They don't fight like a proper military." The Haelor's rigid military structure became their greatest weakness. Their ships could only follow approved tactics. Their crews needed constant direction. Against humans who adapted and improvised, they were fighting blind. Duha introduced the concept of ghost fleets, ships that appeared on Haelor sensors as massive battle groups, but were actually clusters of small, heavily armed vessels. The Empire wasted resources defending against phantom armies while real attacks struck elsewhere. Jin Woo's forces captured the vital Centauri shipyards using data provided by their secret weapon, Ji-soo. During her captivity, the child had memorized Haelor security protocols she'd overheard. This intelligence let human forces slip past defenses designed to be impenetrable. "They're not just fighting us," Zultur realized too late. "They're learning from us, adapting our own technology. Each defeat makes them stronger." The Empire's leadership faced a terrible truth. They had awakened something they couldn't control. Humans didn't just adapt, they evolved. Every battle taught them new ways to fight, while the Haelor remained bound by tradition and protocol. As the third major system fell to Jin Woo's advanced tactics, the Empire's military council met in emergency session. Their perfect order was being undone by human chaos. Their superior technology meant nothing against an enemy who turned their own strengths against them. The Haelor Empire had spent thousands of years becoming the perfect military machine. But against humans, being perfect meant being predictable. The age of Haelor dominance was ending, brought down by the species they had dismissed as primitive. And it had all started because they hurt one human child. Sunmai sat in her digital warfare center beneath Seoul, her fingers dancing across holographic keyboards. Jisoo's story had become her weapon, more powerful than any neural disruptor. The young hacker had infiltrated the Haelor's vast communication network, and now she would make them watch what they had done. Broadcasting on all frequencies, she announced, "Let's show the galaxy what these monsters did to a child." Across thousands of worlds, on every Haelor screen and neural interface, Jisoo's ordeal played out. The footage showed not just her torture, but her courage. Her small voice singing Korean lullabies in her cell, her drawings on the walls, her refusal to break. The effect was immediate. The Haelor Empire had subjugated dozens of species, all kept in line through fear and displays of technological superiority. Now they saw that even a human child could resist. If she could stand against the Empire, so could they. On the mining worlds of the Orion Arm, the insectoid vril workers dropped their tools. In the factory complexes of Antares, the silicon-based crystalline beings shattered their bonds. Every species the Haelor had deemed primitive rose up, inspired by a little girl's defiance. Commander Haelor tried to flee as his empire crumbled. The architect of Jisoo's torture ran to his private yacht, carrying data crystals of his experiments. He found Special Forces Commander Yunhee waiting in his cabin. "She asked to send you a message," Yunhee said, before stunning him with a neural pulse. The trial was held on Earth, in a special court in New Seoul. Representatives from 20 formerly enslaved species came to witness justice. Jisoo, now recovered but forever changed, took the stand. She spoke in perfect Haelor, describing every test, every torture, every moment of pain. But she also spoke of what they had taught her, their weaknesses, their fears, their rigid minds that couldn't understand human strength. "I was not their first victim," she told the court, "but I will be their last." Haelor's defense crumbled as species after species came forward with similar stories. The Empire had built its power on cruelty, assuming their victims were too primitive to fight back. Jisoo had shown them their mistake. The verdict was unanimous. Haelor and his scientists would spend the rest of their lives in a prison designed by their former victims. Each cell would play Jisoo's songs on an endless loop, a reminder of the spirit they couldn't break. Sunli's broadcast continued, reaching every corner of the fallen empire. The message was clear. The age of Haelor superiority was over. A new alliance was forming, built not on technology or force, but on respect for all sentient life. And it had taken just one human child to bring it all down. The Battle of Proxima Centauri marked the end of the Haelor Empire. Their last fleet faced Earth's combined forces, led by the same generals who had shattered their power. The Haelor Emperor himself watched from his flagship as his mighty empire crumbled. Jisoo, now 25, stood in the Great Hall of the newly built Interstellar Rights Council on Earth. The building combined architecture from all known sentient species, a symbol of unity rising from the ashes of war. She touched the scar on her arm, a reminder of what had brought them here. "No child, no being, should ever suffer what I did," she addressed the gathered representatives. "Today we ensure it never happens again." The Jisoo Protocol became the foundation of galactic law. Its first article was simple: no species may judge another's worth by their technology. Its second was stronger: the torture of any sentient being would be met with unified response from all member worlds. Former enemies sat together in the council chambers. Haelor diplomats, stripped of their empire, but not their knowledge, worked alongside humans to build better future. The vril, the crystalline beings, and dozens of other freed species added their voices to the new alliance. Earth's leadership of this new order came not from military might, but from Jisoo's example. She had shown the galaxy that true strength lay not in technology or power, but in spirit and compassion. The former Haelor emperor attended the signing ceremony. He bowed deeply to Jisoo, a gesture that would have been unthinkable years before. "We thought we were teaching you about pain," he said. "Instead, you taught us about humanity." Research centers that once developed weapons now studied peaceful cooperation between species. The quantum drives that had carried warships now powered exploration vessels. Humanity's adaptability, which had made them fierce warriors, made them even better peacekeepers. Jisoo established education programs across the galaxy, teaching young beings of all species about the importance of understanding and respect. The torture chambers where she had suffered became museums, ensuring no one would forget the price of arrogance. "We move forward," she told the council, "not as rulers and subjects, not as advanced and primitive, but as equals under the stars." The galaxy entered a new age. The Jisoo Protocol stood as a reminder that the measure of a species lay not in their technology, but in their heart. And somewhere in Seoul, a small garden of tomatoes still grew on a rooftop, tended by a woman who had changed the universe.